Hey, do you want to be the antidote to all the doom and gloom? Join me as I come from my slice of life to help bring more joy into yours. This is the My Slice of Life podcast. Oh, I love that tune. Welcome to this week's episode of the My Slice of Life podcast. I swear that's the chair squeaking, not me. This week I am asking you, are you prepared for home emergencies? It's one of those things we have to think about whether we like it or not. But if the worst happens, you can take some of that stress out by being prepared for it. Have a little think now, do a couple of little things to get yourself organised, and then if the worst really does happen, you won't be the one panicking and running about like a headless chicken because you have done the groundwork, you're organised, so let's crack on and see what we need to do. I say that like I've got all the answers. I don't. I've got a couple of suggestions I want to run through with you. This chair is so blimmin' squeaky. I'm really sorry if you hear that. Honest to God, it's not me. Although I could do with a good oiling. That sounds really bad. I might take that out. I'll see. Okay, so where are we? What am I doing? So, home emergencies. Nobody wants to think about them, but we have to. And I think the best way to cope with these things is to we'll have a plan. So as usual, we'll make a plan and we're going to start by think the kind of basic things. For example, let's start by thinking about the type of weather that you get in the situation you live in. Are you prone to flooding? Do you get hurricanes? Do you get a lot of freezing weather in the winter? That's our one. We get really cold here in the winter. We're so lucky where we live. We don't really get flooding. We don't get hurricanes or anything like that. Thank goodness. I would hate all that. But we do freeze in the winter, so we have to get ready for that. So have a think about what weather you have to deal with. And don't just take it for granted, I've got to do this. Really think about it. The last time something happened with the weather, were you prepared? What was missing? Okay, so how would we think about that? Things like power cuts. Now this can happen to any of us, but again, these are areas that we're going to be looking at so we can prepare for it a bit more than we already are. And this preparing isn't for doom and gloom. This is so we don't have to doom and gloom. Okay, we're not about that here. I don't want doom and gloom. I am an eternal optimist. I want others to feel that optimism, to see the silver lining, and not in a naive sort of sense. I'm a realistic optimist, if I can put it that way. So do you get a lot of road closures or rail problems in your area, making it difficult to get to the stores or making it hard for the stores to get their supplies in? Did you know, I heard this somewhere, that our stores and shops have about 3 days supply of food at any given time? So if they can't get their supplies, and what do? They run out, we run out. That's something to give a lot of thought to. And again, the previous episode, food shortages, I did mention it there. So think about that. If this situation happens and the rail network shuts down or there's road closures, it's going to cause a lot of problems. And what about, dare I say it, if there's future lockdowns? Or, as some would say, if they put us under house arrest again. They did it once. We know they're dying to do it again. So we can get prepared for all these things. Okay, that's outside stuff. Now think about inside your house. Again, power cuts can happen. Now, we don't get them very often. I know some places do get them quite frequently. We're really lucky here. But if the power goes out, is the equipment that you have in good order? So even if you have a generator, is that in good order? Are you needing to get someone in to test your electrics to make sure everything's good? Is there anything you need to do now to maybe get it a little bit more up to scratch so you don't have these problems coming? And if push comes to shove and the power does go out, what are you going to do? So okay, what about leaks? Again, we're looking at the condition of the actual house here. So do you have leaks in the house that need to be dealt with? Do you have a slight leak in that roof that you keep thinking one day, or the basement if you have one? I really wish we had a basement. We don't have one. I'd love one. Not a spooky one, like in one of these horror films. I want a nice, light one that I can maybe have a wee bit and turn it into an office, and a wee bit for storing all the chutneys and things that I make that I mentioned in the last episode. I would like a wee place like that, but I don't want a spooky one where that clown from It's going to come at me. I don't want that. So anyway, yeah, I'm kind of diverting myself there. So yeah, do you have any leaks that need to be dealt with? How's your water supply? Do you have dirty water? Do you have frequent problems with that? Does your water go a bit mucky after heavy rain, for example? What about if an appliance in your house breaks down? Say, like we had a problem with our fridge freezer. If you lose your fridge freezer, are you prepared to deal with that sort of situation? What if you're sick? What if you get sick and you can't work anymore? Or you're sick and you can't get out to the shops? Are you prepared for that? Do you have alternatives? And think about as well just the general condition of your house. When's the last time you had a good walk around your house, room to room, take a note of repairs that are needing done, write them down? Yeah, I'm coming back at you. Here she goes again with another list. Make a list. Get the jobs done now before the weather changes. I'm saying this, it's, what are we, October. We've still got time. We've still got time before the weather gets bad here, so we can still do things. Now, just a wee tip I'm going to throw in here. If you have poor glazing in your windows, and I used to do this, we've got double glazing now, but even with this it's not perfect. But if you get cling film, don't know what you call that in America. Is it just plastic wrap, I think you call it? Yeah, I think in America it's plastic wrap. If you put that up on your windows, you can stick it on with masking tape and then use a hairdryer on cool to blow over it to take the crinkles out so you can actually see through it. It doesn't look like you've got something stuck there. That can be a really cheap form of like an extra layer of glazing to keep the heat in. Works really well. I actually did it in my flat when I had bad windows. So there's a wee cheap tip for you to get some extra heat. Okay, so I've given you a whole list there of areas to look at outside the house and inside the house. So let's think, if any of them arise, what are you going to do about them? How are we going to actually prepare? Now, the one thing I always think about, in more ways than one, food. Now, yeah, it's on my mind a lot. But think a lot of those situations that I've just mentioned, our food supply is going to be interrupted. Now, the previous episode, I covered a lot of this. We talked about food shortages. So if you haven't listened to that, go and have a listen to it. But you always want to make sure you have extra. Okay, that's the bottom line. Always have extra. I'm not going to go into that anymore because, like I say, I've covered that before. Same with water. That was mentioned in the previous episode too. Make sure you have extra. Make sure you have it stored and that you can boil it or have some way to clean it. Again, if you've had a heavy downpour and you've just got mucky water coming out your taps, that's no use to you. And remember, you need water for drinking, for cleaning yourself, and for things like doing dishes and stuff like that. So you're going to need a fair amount. But even if you have 3 days worth, so again, that's something to consider. Have you made any preparations if the heat goes off? Gas central heating here, but again, if the electric goes off, then the pump isn't going to work, so we have no heating. So we have candles. I have packs of candles. The wee tea lights, you get a lot of heat out of them. So think of it along those lines. Candles, the camping gas stove, they're really helpful. Blankets, hot water bottles, the warm clothes, all those kind of things are going to come in really, really handy. Now, this is something that I do because, like I say, it affects us in the winter. We can't put the heating on. The price of it is, it's just ridiculous. We cannot keep putting the heating on. We have it on for about an hour. The wee hour plus hour button we have, press that on and that's pretty much it. Get the hour and then it's just, light the candles and cozy up. And the light, same as for the heat, if the power goes off and you lose your light, do you have alternatives? So again, candles are great because you're going to get light and heat from them, so they're ideal, but you're going to need a lot of them. If you need extra for a couple of days, the candles don't last long, so you're going to need a lot. Torches, make sure you have good torches, not the cheap ones. I made that mistake. I used to have lots of cheap ones and they were crap. They don't last. So plenty of torches and batteries, and make sure you have spare batteries. You do not want to run out. Okay, do you have salt or grit for your driveway or your path if it's getting really icy? That's something I hate. I hate going out on ice. So I do make a point of trying to clear the path, so I'm not going to go flying about on that. Good word, skiting. Not skating, skiting. Aye, go skiting about in the ice. I don't like it. I hate ice, I hate it. And grips for your shoes. I've got them as well. They're not expensive, and they can really be the difference between you feeling trapped in your house and being able to go out and do what you need to do. So grit for your paths and grips for your shoes. And also make sure you got good tyres on your car if you drive. Check your tyres. I'm really bad for it, and I have to remind myself to keep checking them. You don't want to be out in bad weather, whether it's rain or ice or whatever it is, and your tyres aren't up to the job. So check them and make sure you have good tyres. Even if you can only replace one at a time, get it done. It's a simple job and it can really make a huge, huge difference. Okay, another thing that you can take control of and be prepared for in your house is first aid. Now, I did cover this a lot in a previous episode. Are you prepared for health hiccups? So go back and have a listen to that. But just in very, very briefly, make sure you have medical supplies, even basic medical knowledge. And if you're into your herbal stuff, is your herbal cabinet, your herbal, I'm going to try this, apothecary, I got it, is that stocked up? Are you up to date with everything you need there? Now we're going to come to something nobody likes talking about. But what if you have a financial emergency? Like I say, if your fridge freezer breaks down, have you got enough spare cash saved up to replace it? Do you have a saving plan? Even a couple of quid, just a couple of quid a week, put that away, don't touch it. So you know if something breaks down, you've got something there that you can use. Now, something people might not have thought about, but it is something to just give a little bit of thought. Do you have a bug out bag? If you need to leave your house in an emergency, say there's a gas leak down the street and it's everybody out, do you have a bag just ready to grab and go? It's got clothes, food, medicines, just enough to get you through for a couple of days. Think about that. That can really be the difference between being comfortable and panicking. Another thing, and the last thing I'm going to give you to give a little bit of thought to, is don't forget things like card games, board games, just simple things to keep up morale, so that if the electricity goes out and you're bored, you've got people, kids moaning, whatever, just have something there that you can say, all right, we've got light, we've got heat, so you've got your candles going, you've got your torches, make it a game. You can play cards by candlelight or whatever, but think of something to have so that if the worst happens, you've got something there to give a wee bit of a morale boost. It really can make a huge difference to everybody and make it more of an adventure than a disaster. So I think I've given you plenty this week to think about. I've mentioned them before, but another podcast, if you like this kind of thing, getting prepared for stuff, a bit of prepping, the Casual Preppers podcast is a really excellent resource, so hop along there, have a listen to them. They cover a lot of topics about this sort of thing. And just before I go, just a little reminder, if you look in the show notes below, you'll see links to all the various things I do, the blog, the YouTube and so on. Now there is also a link to the Patreon and the Buy Me a Coffee. The PDF that goes with this season is now finished, it's ready, so even if you just, put in a wee tip to buy me a coffee, you will get a copy of this document. And it's like a 26-page document. It's good. There's a lot of information in it. Covers the whole season. So if you fancy getting your hands on that, just nip along to the Buy Me a Coffee or the Patreon and give a little support to the show. That's how you can help me out there. That would be fantastic. If you don't want to do that, even if you just tell a couple of people about the podcast to help it grow that way, that would be brilliant. I would really appreciate that as well. So I'll be back next week, helping you get prepared for something else. It's actually a big topic next week. You do not want to miss it, I can guarantee it. But until then, you take care of yourself.